Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to Crime Zone. In the past on this channel, we've made plenty of jokes about the fact that a lot of strange crimes seem to happen in Florida. In fact, we did a 2-part compilation series last year entirely focused on the Sunshine State, and one of the reasons it ended up being 2 parts was because there was no shortage of content. However, if you've tuned into our Crimes of the Week series before, you'll know that strange crimes can happen anywhere. And since we're doing a month of compilations for the holiday season, we thought it would be fun to look back at a bunch of cases that prove this point. These are stories that are either weird or wild enough that they'll have you saying to yourself, "Wow, I can't believe it's not Florida." One little thing before we get started, these segments have not been edited since they appeared in their respective lists, so references to specific charges as well as other small details may no longer apply. With that out of the way, let's get into it.
On Monday, police in New Orleans announced that they were searching for a man dressed in a Chewbacca costume who was accused of stabbing someone the previous weekend. The incident reportedly unfolded just before 9 p.m. on April 24th, when the man, who is believed to be a street performer, got into an argument with someone on the 700 block of Toulouse Street in the city's French Quarter. The man dressed as Chewbacca stabbed the victim during the argument. Investigators have since released a photo of the suspect, fully dressed in the costume, and was asking for the public's help to make an identification. They also said that the head of the costume flew off sometime during the altercation, and that the suspect was a man who appeared to be in his 20s. Anyone with information about the case is encouraged to contact the New Orleans Police Department or to call Crime Stoppers. This week, authorities in Nashville announced that they had arrested a 39-year-old man in a bizarre and rather gross assault case in which he had attacked police officers with his colostomy bag. The incident reportedly took place on the night of May 1st, when Nicholas Newhart was extremely intoxicated outside of Kid Rock's big-ass honky-tonk and rock and roll steakhouse. Police were called to the scene after Newhart refused to leave the outdoor area where he had been standing. He had been asked to move by the restaurant's security staff because he was blocking the building's emergency exit. When police again asked Newhart to leave, they found him equally uncooperative, and when they tried to forcibly remove him, he pulled out his colostomy bag from the front area of his pants and began to swing the bag around. Disgustingly, 2 Metro police officers were hit with Newhart's feces before they could take him into custody. Newhart has since been charged with disorderly conduct, public intoxication, and 2 counts of assaulting a police officer. Authorities in the city of South Euclid, Ohio, say that they have arrested a 25-year-old woman this week following a bizarre assault case that took place in a local Walmart. Police say the incident unfolded in the potato chip aisle of the store on Tuesday when Monica Garner spotted 36-year-old Precious Jackson. After trying and failing to remove Jackson's mask so she could spit on her, Gardner reached into Jackson's cart, pulled out a 10-pound packaged log of ground beef, and proceeded to beat Jackson in the face with it several times. Both women were accompanied by their young children at the time of the assault. Garner apparently has a history of violent behavior, and at the time of the incident, Jackson had a protective order against her. When Garner was arrested, she reportedly tried to explain her actions by saying she thought the protective order was no longer in effect. She has since been charged with assault and violation of a protection order.
A terrifying story of child abduction took a decidedly strange turn this week after it was discovered that the couple who had initially reported the crime lied about the kidnapping in order to get their stolen vehicle returned to them more quickly. According to reports, the incident began on Wednesday afternoon when 40-year-old Stormy Wagner and 37-year-old James Wagner went to a Quick Trip convenience store with another couple who they had just met. At some point, the unnamed couple left the store, driving off in the Wagner's 1999 Ford F-250. Apparently believing that the authorities would not put sufficient resources towards finding the truck, the Wagners decided to motivate them, saying that an 18-month-old girl that was left in their care had also been taken along with their vehicle. Police began searching for the missing child and truck immediately, and didn't even have time to issue an Amber Alert before they managed to track down the stolen vehicle in a nearby neighborhood. The unnamed couple who had taken it were located in a house close by. However, there was no sign of the missing child. When police began to question all 4 people involved in the incident, they quickly realized that things didn't add up. That's when they discovered that the kidnapping part of the crime was totally fabricated. In a complete reversal of fortunes, police announced on Thursday that the Wagners had been arrested and would be charged with making a false report after wasting the department's resources. Meanwhile, the unnamed couple that stole their vehicle had not been charged, though that could still change based on the decision of the Maricopa County Attorney's Office. This week, authorities in El Paso announced that a woman had been arrested after she was filmed brazenly climbing into the spider monkey enclosure at the El Paso Zoo and attempting to feed the animals hot Cheetos. The woman, who has since been identified as 26-year-old Luz Elizabeth Ray, reportedly got into the enclosure after making it past the fence, bushes, and moat that currently separate the monkeys in their exhibit from the zoo's guests. El Paso police announced that Ray had been arrested for criminal trespass on Thursday, a few days after the clip of her in the spider monkey enclosure went viral. Zoo officials said that they couldn't let the behavior go unpunished, pointing out that there were significant dangers involved in the stunt for both Ray and the animals. They also say that they may now have to increase the barrier sizes around the exhibit to prevent further trespassing attempts, something that will likely diminish the visibility of the exhibit for all guests. It was reported that Ray has also since been fired from the personal injury law firm where she worked. The company said in a statement that they did not condone her irresponsible and reckless behavior. On Tuesday, representatives from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Central District of California announced that a retired nun had agreed to plead guilty to fraud and money laundering charges after she embezzled more than $835,000 from a school where she worked and gambled it away in Las Vegas. According to reports, 79-year-old Mary Margaret Cooper stole the money from St. James Catholic School in Torrance, where she served as the principal for 28 years. During this time, she controlled several aspects of the school's finances, including multiple credit union accounts, as well as the money the school received for tuition, fees, and charitable donations. Authorities say that Cooper's embezzlement took place over a period of 10 years, in which she made numerous trips to Las Vegas and gambled the money away. She and an accomplice, Sister Lara Chang, reportedly told people that the money came from a rich uncle. The scheme was finally uncovered in 2018, after the FBI was asked to investigate a check that had been deposited into one of the school's accounts. Cooper has agreed to plead guilty to 1 count of wire fraud and 1 count of money laundering, charges that carry a maximum sentence of up to 40 years in federal prison. It remains unclear if authorities plan to pursue charges against Cooper's accomplice. A man accused of stealing an endangered ring-tailed lemur made his first appearance in federal court on Monday, and authorities now say he could be facing substantial fines and prison time if convicted. The bizarre incident began on the night of October 13, 2020, when police allege that 31-year-old Corey McGilloway snuck into the Lippman family lemur forest at the San Francisco Zoo. After entering the enclosure, he reportedly made off with the lemur, a 21-year-old male named Mackie. When Mackie was discovered to be missing the next morning, alarmed zoo officials went to police and immediately issued a public statement pleading for help. They noted that Mackie was highly endangered and required special care, and also offered a $2,100 reward for information leading to his safe return. On October 15th, a woman recorded a strange video of a man, now believed to be McGilloway, walking a lemur on a leash on Treasure Island in the San Francisco Bay. She had also witnessed the man taking the animal to his maroon car. Just a few hours later, the lemur was spotted again, this time on the grounds of a preschool in Daly City, just south of San Francisco. By this time, the lemur appeared to be alone. Authorities soon arrived and were able to confirm that this was Mackie, and he was transported back to his home at the zoo. Though he was dehydrated, agitated, and hungry, he was reported to be otherwise okay. Police caught up with McGilloway just before midnight that same day. By this time, he was driving a stolen dump truck and was taken into custody. A search of McGilloway's phone revealed images of him and Mackey, as well as Google queries such as food to feed lemurs, veterinary care for lemurs, what is required to own a lemur, and names for monkey. A later search of his vehicle also turned up a stainless steel bowl that belonged to the San Francisco Zoo. According to reports, McGilloway could face up to a year in prison and up to $50,000 in fines for the lemur theft. It is unclear if he is currently facing charges for stealing the dump truck. An Illinois woman is facing charges this week, a little more than 2 months after viral footage of her was allegedly captured violating wildlife protection laws in Yellowstone National Park. According to reports, the incident occurred sometime in mid-May of this year, when a woman named Samantha Daring was visiting Yellowstone's Roaring Mountain area. Just before 5 p.m., a group of tourists in the area noticed a mother grizzly bear and her 2 cubs, who were coming closer to them. In accordance with park regulations that require visitors to stay at least 300 feet away from the bears, the tourists quickly retreated to their vehicles. That was, with the exception of Samantha Daring. Instead of moving away from the bears, Daring walked closer until she was within roughly 15 feet of the grizzlies and began taking pictures of them with her phone. The tense interaction was filmed by witnesses who captured the moment when the mother grizzly bear bluff charged her before retreating. It was only after that Daring finally walked away. The footage was shared on social media and quickly went viral, where it caught the attention of Yellowstone Park rangers. Within days of the clip circulating online, the officials posted an appeal to the Yellowstone Facebook page, asking for help identifying the woman in the video. Daring, who had been following the page until that point, promptly unfollowed, but it wasn't enough to stop her from being found. Someone who had seen her name tagged in the video reached out to the park rangers, after which a warrant was obtained to search Daring's Facebook page. Images that she had taken of the grizzlies were soon uncovered. Daring has now been charged with feeding, touching, teasing, frightening, or intentionally disturbing wildlife, as well as violating closure limits. She is due to appear in court on August 26th.
Authorities in Oconee County, South Carolina say that a 31-year-old man is in custody this week after he allegedly stole a horse and took it to his father's house. The incident began on August 9th when a witness spotted Gary Cobble Jr. riding the horse down a road in the community of Mountain Rest before walking it inside the residence. After the bizarre sighting was reported to police, deputies contacted Coble's father, who told them that his son was not supposed to be there. The father met authorities at his house, and upon entering they immediately noticed horse feces in the living room. A quick search of the residence revealed both Coble and the stolen horse hiding in a bedroom. According to reports, aside from a small cut on one of the horse's front legs, the animal was unharmed and was calm at the time police found it. Coble was taken into custody on charges of stealing livestock. At the time of his arrest, police said that he also had numerous other warrants out for recent unrelated burglaries and thefts in the area. He is currently being held at the Oconee County Detention Center.
A South Carolina elementary school teacher has been arrested and is facing charges this week after she was accused of having marijuana edible candies in her classroom prize box. According to reports, 27-year-old Victoria Weiss kept the candy-stocked prize box in her classroom at Rocky Creek Elementary School in Lexington as a way to reward students. The bizarre and concerning contents of the box came to light on September 23rd, after a boy in Weiss's class was allowed to pick something and came out with a package of edibles labeled Stony Patch Kids, obviously meant to emulate the branding of the popular gummy treat Sour Patch Kids. Weiss evidently realized that these were edibles because she took the package away from the boy and told him to choose again. However, when he grabbed a second package of marijuana edibles from the box, it apparently went unnoticed. That was until the boy arrived at his after-school daycare program and asked for help opening the package. After realizing that the boy was in possession of edibles, the daycare contacted his school. A search of the prize box revealed additional packages of edibles, as did a subsequent search of Weiss's house. Though thankfully none of the children consumed any of the edibles, Parents, as well as staff at the school, were understandably concerned by the incident. This is especially true since, unlike many states that have changed their marijuana laws in recent years, the edibles reportedly remain totally illegal in South Carolina. Weiss was fired from her job on October 13th and turned herself into authorities 2 days later. She is currently facing charges for possession of a Schedule I drug. At the time of this recording, it remains unclear exactly how the edibles came to be in Weiss's prize box. Though it's clear that she filled the box with candy, some reports state that she purchased the treats from a Dollar General store. This, combined with the fact that she took the first package of edibles from the student, suggests that this is likely a case of negligence rather than malice. If so, we're guessing that Weiss is probably going to take more time reading labels in the future. Authorities in Las Vegas, Nevada, say that a 36-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after he reportedly rammed his vehicle into a secured area of a local airport and told people he had a bomb. According to reports, the incident began shortly before 7 p.m. on the evening of December 8th, when police received reports that a man in a limousine was performing donuts in the parking lot of an air carrier on East Reno Avenue. However, things soon escalated when the man rammed his vehicle through the security gates at the McCarran International Airport and began driving near planes located inside. When the man was confronted by airline employees, he stepped out of the limousine wearing a clown mask and began to yell that he had a bomb and he was going to blow up the airport. The threats prompted an evacuation of the premises until police could arrive to deal with the situation. After a short pursuit, police were able to stop the man and take him into custody. He has since been identified as 36-year-old Matthew Ray Hancock. When Hancock was arrested by police, he repeated his bomb threat, claiming he had a gasoline device in his car. He also demanded to be allowed to take one of the planes at the airport so that he could fly to Area 51 to look for aliens. Though the bomb squad had to be called in to investigate, thankfully it was revealed that there was nothing dangerous in Hancock's vehicle. The device he had referred to was actually an oxygen tank and a fire extinguisher, which had been covered in metal objects and Christmas lights. Upon further questioning, Hancock continued to make bizarre claims to police, saying among other things that he had high security clearance, ties to the mob, and that someone owed him millions of dollars. According to reports, it's believed that Hancock is the same person who was caught driving recklessly in a limo on November 11th. He was apparently cited for misdemeanor reckless driving after he was witnessed skidding through lanes on the Las Vegas Strip, barely missing other vehicles. Hancock has now been charged with making a false terror threat, causing dispersal with a hoax substance, and trespassing. His bail has been set at $150,000. Representatives from the Delaware State Police say that a bank robbery in Wilmington took a bizarre turn this week when the alleged suspect deposited the stolen money at an ATM at the same bank he had just robbed. According to reports, the incident took place at approximately 11:20 a.m. on December 11th, when 44-year-old Mick Roberts Williams arrived at the Wells Fargo Bank on Old Capitol Trail. After approaching one of the bank's tellers, Williams allegedly slipped a note across the counter informing her that this was a robbery. The teller complied with Williams's demands and handed over an undisclosed amount of cash, and he subsequently fled. However, it was what Williams did next that has investigators scratching their heads. According to police, once Williams was outside the bank, he immediately went to an ATM located on one of the building's exterior walls and deposited all of the stolen cash. He then continued to flee the scene, but was quickly located behind the nearby Price's Corner shopping center and arrested. Williams has since been charged with second-degree robbery and remains in custody at the Howard R. Young Correctional Institution. Unfortunately, at the current time, we aren't any closer to understanding how Williams thought that he would get away with the crime. Amazingly, it said that the account that he deposited the stolen money into was his own. Authorities in the city of Mankato, Minnesota, say that a 37-year-old man who was recently arrested on a drug charge offered a rather unique excuse for why he was in possession of an illegal substance, when he claimed that the pants he was wearing didn't belong to him. According to reports, the incident began just before 11:30 a.m. on January 5th, when an officer with the Mankato Department of Public Safety initiated a traffic stop at the intersection of Broad and Ruth Streets. When the vehicle stopped, the officer went up to the driver's side window, where he immediately noticed that the vehicle smelled like marijuana, and the man behind the wheel, 37-year-old Brandon Siak, was not wearing his seatbelt. Further investigation revealed that Siak's license had been revoked and that his passenger had an active warrant out for his arrest for probation violation. As if things weren't bad enough, when Siak was asked to step out of the vehicle for a pat-down search, the officer allegedly found a plastic baggie containing 2 grams of methamphetamine in one of the pockets of his sweatpants. Apparently coming to terms with the gravity of his situation, it was at this point that Siak reportedly decided to get creative, telling the officer that he didn't know anything about the drugs, and that actually, the sweatpants didn't even belong to him. Unfortunately for Siak, his alleged lie soon fell apart when he gave the name of a person who the sweatpants supposedly belonged to. That person turned out to be 4 feet 1 inch tall, a hilarious 22 inches shorter than Siak, even though the pants fit him perfectly fine. Siak was arrested at the scene and is now facing a felony narcotics possession charge. According to reports, Siak has a lengthy criminal history and has previously been convicted of offenses such as fraud, burglary, receiving stolen property, disorderly conduct, assault, DWI, theft, narcotics possession, check forgery, domestic assault, and driving with a revoked license. Authorities in the city of Monroe, Louisiana, say that the suspect behind a lengthy vehicle chase offered a fairly novel reason for why he didn't pull over when an officer tried to perform a traffic stop this week. He claimed that he wanted to finish his hamburger first. According to reports, the situation began just after 11 p.m. on January 19th, when an officer from the Monroe Police Department spotted a 2006 Chevy Impala that was driving with its high beams on, making it hard for him to see the road and potentially blinding other drivers in oncoming traffic. However, when the officer turned on his lights and siren to pull the driver over and tell him to turn his lights down, the man did not stop, and instead began to lead the officer on a chase. According to the officer, the pursuit lasted for some time, during which the driver blew through at least 6 stop signs without stopping and drove 60 miles per hour in a 25 zone. The chase allegedly ended when the driver pulled up in front of his home around midnight and stepped out of his vehicle holding a hamburger. The driver was later identified as 37-year-old Alan Seabury. After being arrested and read his rights, Seabury reportedly tried a number of excuses for why he hadn't stopped earlier, including that his brakes weren't functioning properly and that he couldn't stop. However, the most ridiculous one by far was that he had just purchased the hamburger he was eating, and he wanted to finish it before pulling over. It appears that the actual reason Seabury didn't stop was far more mundane, however. His vehicle was allegedly uninsured, and he was driving without a license. Seabury was booked into the local county jail on a felony aggravated flight charge. He was also charged with 3 misdemeanors, including driving without a license and driving an uninsured vehicle. Unfortunately, there's no additional information on the burger Seabury was apparently willing to go to jail for. Representatives from the Massachusetts State Police say that they have arrested and charged a 24-year-old man this week after he was allegedly caught trying to get into a tiger enclosure at a Boston zoo. The incident began at approximately 8:45 a.m. on February 21st, when staff at Boston's Franklin Park Zoo noticed a man in a non-public area behind the Tiger Tales exhibit. The exhibit is home to Anala, a Bengal tiger mix. When the man realized that he had been spotted by staff members, he quickly climbed over a nearby gate and attempted to escape. However, he was found and taken into custody by the zoo's security staff roughly 15 minutes later. The man was subsequently identified as 24-year-old Matthew Abraham, a Worcester State University student majoring in biology. Following Abraham's arrest, he reportedly made a number of bizarre statements to police, the first of which was that he had committed the crime because he was, quote, very interested in tigers. He also claimed that he didn't know that he had to pay admission to the zoo because it was winter, and thought that he was simply allowed to view the exhibit. According to zoo officials, this could not possibly be true. While Abraham did not make it into the actual enclosure where the tiger is kept, they say that he still would have had to climb multiple fences and ignore several signs telling him that he was trespassing to get where he was spotted. In subsequent interviews with the media, Abraham reportedly claimed that he didn't mean to harm anyone, including himself or the tiger, going on to say that he just wanted to see how a tiger would react to a human being. He also said that he wanted to get close enough to see into the tiger's eyes, saying, quote, they say it's something called the eye of the tiger. They say the eye of the tiger is the most dangerous thing you'll ever see in your whole life. They say that the soul is visible through the eye. What this means is anyone's guess, although the stunt reportedly earned Abraham charges of trespassing and disorderly conduct. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, you'll probably know that Abraham is just the latest in a growing number of people who have gotten into trouble for trying to illegally get into animal enclosures at zoos across the United States. Maybe he can get together in the future and compare notes with the El Paso Zoo monkey woman or the notorious Bronx Zoo cat lady.
Authorities in Caldwell County, North Carolina, say that they have arrested a 29-year-old man this week after he allegedly tried to commit a convenience store robbery armed only with a lighter and a can of spray de-icer. According to reports, the incident began at approximately 12:45 p.m. on February 23rd when a man named Logan Ryan Jones allegedly entered a Ross & Company convenience store in Lenoir, North Carolina. He then handed a note to the cashier at the store demanding money. When the cashier refused, Jones reportedly began spraying the can of de-icer he was carrying while lighting it with his lighter, causing a jet of fire to shoot across the counter. Though this caused a small fire to start near the cash register, the cashier was apparently unfazed by Jones's actions. The fire was quickly put out, and Jones was told to get out. He was arrested a short time later as he was driving away from the crime scene. According to reports, Jones already had an outstanding warrant for one count of accessory before the fact to a felony at the time of his arrest. At the time of this recording, he remains in police custody and now faces additional charges for attempted robbery with a dangerous weapon, as well as one additional charge for setting a fire in the convenience store.
While no one was technically arrested or charged in connection with this next story, we decided to include it on this week's list since we knew that most of you would get a kick out of it. And, as you'll see, because some people apparently still require clarification about when it's acceptable to call 911. Authorities in the city of Euclid, Ohio, allegedly had to admonish a 62-year-old woman this week after she apparently called 911 to report that she had been shorted on an order of chicken tenders at a local KFC. According to reports, the incident began on the evening of March 22nd, when 62-year-old Lisa Castro dialed 911 and asked for an officer to be dispatched to her location. She claimed that she had just been through the drive-thru of a KFC restaurant and that she'd only been given 4 out of the 8 chicken tenders she had ordered. She further stated that when she had spoken to the manager of the restaurant, they had refused to give her the chicken that was supposedly missing from her order. Castro told emergency dispatchers that she would be waiting in the parking lot of the KFC in a Dodge SUV until police arrived. Though an officer was sent to Castro's location, much to her chagrin, it was not to force the manager of the KFC to hand over her allegedly missing tenders. Instead, the officer explained that their duties to protect and serve the community did not extend to settling fast food drive-thru disputes, and that the situation was not a police matter. No charges were filed in connection with the incident, though police apparently released a statement afterwards reminding people that the 911 system is for emergencies only. Authorities in the city of Belfast, Maine, say that they have made an arrest in a bizarre trespassing case this week after a drunk suspect tried to hide from police in plain sight by covering himself with a blanket. According to reports, the incident began at around 9:30 p.m. on May 1st, when police were called to the Admiral Ocean Inn with a report of a disturbance caused by a drunken man. When they arrived at the scene, they identified the man as Philip Delude and learned that he had been bothering guests at the inn. Delude was escorted off of the property by police and was informed that if he returned, he would be placed under arrest. It seemed like that was the end of the incident until about 3 hours later, when officers were conducting a sweep of the inn's parking lot to make sure that everything was okay, and spotted something strange outside of one of the rooms. It turned out to be Delude, who was sitting on a chair. Despite being in plain sight, he had thrown a blanket over himself as if to hide the fact that he was there. Understandably, Delude's laughable attempt to conceal himself did not work on the officers, and he was placed under arrest for criminal trespass and violation of bail conditions. In a subsequent Facebook post about the incident, the police wrote, quote, "Here at Belfast Police Department, we have seen some crafty ways of hiding from the police. This, unfortunately, is not one of them." Underneath the post, multiple users joked about Delude's childlike choice of hiding place, with some saying that the whole thing seemed like something out of an episode of Scooby-Doo. Another user replied, "He almost got away with it." Authorities in Jefferson County, Texas are asking for the public's assistance this week to uncover the whereabouts of a man in connection with a bizarre burglary case after he allegedly broke into someone's property under the cover of darkness and mowed their lawn. According to reports, the strange incident unfolded on the night of April 1st, when a homeowner in the city of Port Arthur called local police to report that an unknown person was cutting grass at their residence. It's unclear if the homeowner was at the property at the time, but what we do know is that the suspect was caught on multiple surveillance cameras that were filming the back and front of the house. In the footage, a man can be seen grabbing a gas-powered lawnmower from somewhere near the back of the property before filling its tank up with gasoline. After that, the man proceeds to mow the backyard before continuing his illicit yard work on the grass at the front of the house. When police arrived at the scene to question the man, he took off running, pulling the lawnmower behind him for a short distance before ditching it in an alley and continuing his escape. After that, he managed to get away. Despite successfully evading police, authorities subsequently identified the suspect as a man named Marcus Renard Hubbard. According to reports, Hubbard is now wanted for burglary of a building, and police are now asking anyone with information concerning his whereabouts to reach out to Port Arthur police. Unfortunately, no additional information is available about why Hubbard allegedly broke into the homeowner's property, or if he had any plans beyond simply mowing the person's lawn. Authorities in Wichita, Kansas say that they have identified the culprit behind a truly gross crime this week after a woman reportedly defecated in a local beauty store, causing damage to product. According to reports, the incident began on May 10th when the female suspect entered a beauty supply store in the 2200 block of East 21st Street. After walking around the store for a bit, the woman defecated in one of the aisles before taking off. In a subsequent post to social media about the case, Wichita police stated that the bowel movement was, quote, significant enough that 8 wigs were destroyed as a result. While the identity of the suspect that many have jokingly referred to as the poopatrator or public enemy number 2 remained a mystery for several days, police now say that thanks to surveillance footage taken of the crime and tips from concerned citizens, she has been successfully identified. However, that information has yet to be shared with the public. Police also say they have yet to uncover the motive behind the incident, suggesting that they believe the defecation was intentional. As for the surveillance footage of the crime, police were nice enough not to post it, jokingly saying, quote, "For the good of you all, we are not posting the footage of the offending fecal assault." At the time of this recording, it's unclear what, if any, criminal charges the woman could be facing. Authorities in Pontotoc County, Oklahoma say that they were treated to quite the tall tale this week when a 53-year-old murder suspect tried to claim that he had killed his fishing partner in self-defense because he was trying to feed him to Bigfoot. According to reports, the incident began on July 10th when the body of a man named Jimmy Knighton was found in the South Canadian River. After some investigation, police learned that Jimmy had last been seen the day before with his friend and fishing partner, 53-year-old Larry Doyle Sanders. The two had gone to do some noodling for catfish in the river. When Sanders was questioned about Jimmy's death, he reportedly admitted to killing his friend, but claimed that he had a good explanation. You see, Jimmy had been trying to summon Bigfoot, causing Sanders to fear for his life. According to the 53-year-old, things had been going fine at the river up until the two of them got into an altercation. It's unclear if the whole fight was about Bigfoot or whether the mythical forest-dwelling ape-like creature was brought into the situation later. But what we do know is that at some point things turned violent. Sanders claims that Jimmy was trying to get away from him during the fight because he had called Bigfoot and was trying to get the creature to eat him, so he struck him with a stick and strangled him to death. Understandably, authorities did not buy Sanders' story, saying that they believe it's more likely that he was under the influence of something at the time that caused the Bigfoot-related paranoia. The 53-year-old has since been arrested and is now charged with first-degree murder.
Authorities in Waukesha County, Wisconsin say that they're on the hunt for an unknown suspect this week after he recently tried and failed to rob a local jewelry store with nothing but a brick, a crime that has been jokingly referred to as all smash and no grab. According to reports, the incident took place at around 1 p.m. on June 1st when the male suspect pulled up to a K Jewelers in the village of Menomonee Falls, roughly 15 miles outside of Milwaukee. After entering the store, the man walked over to one of the nearest displays before he pulled a brick out of his pocket and, without a word, proceeded to throw it at the top glass of the display case. We know this because the entire thing was captured on the store's video surveillance system. Unfortunately for the suspect, the display case proved far more resilient than he likely anticipated, with its glass merely cracking rather than shattering. Despite this, he continued to hurl the brick at the same spot on the display case, seemingly undeterred by his slow progress. Finally, on the 9th time that the suspect launched the brick, the glass shattered, falling into the display case while only creating a small opening. However, before the suspect could either retrieve his brick or any valuables from the jewelry case, an employee from the store had already sprung into action. They could be seen running towards the business's front doors, grabbing a metal pool on the way, presumably with the intention of either heading the suspect off or locking him inside. Unfortunately, the suspect noticed this and ran for it, managing to escape in his vehicle before he could be caught by the employee. Although the suspect failed miserably at his robbery attempt, given the destruction he caused and the brazenness of the crime, police are nonetheless eager to find him. Local authorities have released a description of the man and his vehicle in the hopes that a member of the public will be able to identify him. The suspect is described as medium skin tone, approximately 5'7" to 6 feet tall, medium build, with tattoos on his right arm and forearm. The car he was driving at the time of the crime was a 2013 to 2015 tan Chevy Malibu without license plates. Anyone with information about the suspect is encouraged to contact the Menomonee Falls Police Department or Waukesha County Crime Stoppers. Authorities in Utah County, Utah say that a 26-year-old man has been arrested this week after he allegedly ignited a 60-acre wildfire, one that started when he tried to burn a spider. According to reports, the incident began sometime between 4:30 and 5 p.m. on August 1st, when authorities received a call about a wildfire east of the city of Springfield near the Bonneville Shoreline Trailhead on the southwest side of Buckley Mountain. Though fire departments from Provo, Springville, Mapleton, and Utah County were quick to respond, drought and wind conditions soon caused the fire to begin to creep up the mountainside, and 2 helicopters had to be called in to assist. Thankfully, no homes or buildings were destroyed, and by the following day, emergency crews reported that the 60-acre blaze was 90% contained. As firefighters were working to extinguish the wildfire, they quickly found out that it had not originated from natural causes. They made this discovery after arriving at the scene to find a 26-year-old man named Corey Allen Martin, who said that he was responsible. When Martin was handed over to the police, he apparently offered a bizarre explanation for what had happened. According to reports, Martin claimed that he had been out walking his dog that afternoon when for some reason he decided to burn a spider he had seen with his lighter. In the process, he had accidentally ignited some of the surrounding brush, which spread very rapidly and quickly got out of hand due to the drought conditions in the area. Apparently, the 26-year-old offered no follow-up explanation for why he tried to burn the spider in the first place. Understandably, Martin was arrested after making this confession, at which time his belongings were searched. Police say that a jar of marijuana and other drug paraphernalia were found, though they do not believe he was under the influence of any substances at the time of his arrest. While Martin was initially booked for reckless burning and possession of marijuana, reports say that he has since been released from jail. At the current time, it appears that local authorities are still deciding whether to pursue charges against him. Authorities in Spokane County, Washington say that a suspected burglar was on the receiving end of a double dose of instant karma this week when he was not only caught by police at the scene of a crime, but also sprayed by a skunk. According to reports, the incident began just after 3 a.m. on August 4th when officers from the Spokane County Sheriff's Office received a call about a possible burglary in process at a church in the city of Deer Park. The caller explained that a man wearing a mask over his face and carrying a flashlight had been seen on a surveillance live feed at the church walking around inside and looking at audio equipment. When officers arrived at the scene, it didn't take long for them to spot their suspect. The man, later identified as 28-year-old Grant Simonson, was observed walking around in the church before climbing out an open window. When police announced their presence, Simonson was reportedly cooperative and responded to commands to show his hands and get down on the ground. It turned out to be extremely bad timing, as at exactly that moment a skunk reportedly ran out from a corner, sprayed Simonson, and then took off. The 28-year-old was then placed under arrest. After being taken into custody, Simonson reportedly attempted to explain his presence in the church that morning. He said that he had been wide awake and bored, so he decided to go on a bike ride. When he discovered an open window at the church, he said he removed the screen from it to get inside because he was, quote, curious. Police did not buy this excuse, however, and Simonson was booked into Spokane County Jail for second-degree burglary. He was reportedly released later that day, and while reports don't mention why, we're guessing that the awful smell might have played a factor.
Authorities in Fayetteville, Arkansas say that an executive at the well-known vegan food company Beyond Meat got a taste of the real thing this week when he allegedly attacked another man in a parking lot and bit his nose. According to reports, the strange and violent situation unfolded sometime after 10 p.m. on September 17th in a parking garage near Fayetteville's Razorback Stadium. It began when 53-year-old Doug Ramsey, described online as the chief operating officer of Beyond Meat, was in his vehicle attempting to leave the parking garage after watching a college football game. As Ramsey was in the traffic lane near Gate 15, another man driving a Subaru allegedly inched his way in front of his Ford Bronco. When he did, he reportedly caused a minor collision, making slight contact with the front passenger's side tire. According to witnesses, the situation sent Ramsey into a rage, who got out of his vehicle and proceeded to punch out the back windshield of the Subaru. When the driver got out of the vehicle, Ramsey allegedly pulled him in close and started to punch him. It was during this assault that he reportedly bit the man's nose, ripping some of the flesh off at the tip. Witnesses allege that they also heard Ramsey threaten to kill the Subaru driver. The situation was finally brought to an end when occupants of both of the vehicles got out and managed to pull the two men apart. When police were called to the scene, Ramsey was placed under arrest. He is now facing charges of third-degree battery and making terroristic threats. Following the incident, Beyond Meat released a statement saying that the executive had been suspended effective immediately. At the time of this recording, Ramsey has reportedly been released on bail. His next court appearance is scheduled for October 19th. As a fugitive from the law, you would think that your top, and perhaps only priority, would be avoiding the police. Well, apparently, that's precisely the opposite of what one wanted Pennsylvania woman did this week, when she walked right into a New Jersey sheriff's office and asked for a job. According to reports, the situation began recently when the Hudson County Sheriff's Office in Jersey City was looking to hire a new security guard. While looking through applications and doing their usual background checks, one candidate quickly stood out: 27-year-old Zaima Johnson. Unfortunately for her, it wasn't because of her stellar qualifications. It was because she was wanted on fraud charges in Monroe County, Pennsylvania, and had an additional 10 bench warrants for failure to appear in court. On October 4th, Johnson was invited into the sheriff's office under the guise of a job interview, and when she showed up, was promptly taken into custody. Things quickly got even worse for the 27-year-old when she was also found to be in possession of 2 stolen credit cards at the time of her arrest. Johnson has now been charged with credit card theft and at the time of this recording is currently awaiting extradition to Pennsylvania. Representatives from Massachusetts' Hampton County Sheriff's Office say that a 55-year-old woman is facing multiple charges this week after she allegedly weaponized honeybees against several of their officers during the middle of an eviction protest. According to reports, the incident began on the morning of October 12th when members of the Hampton County Sheriff's Office went to a property in Longmeadow to serve eviction papers to a man named Alton King Jr., who reportedly owes $1.3 million on his $1.5 million 22-room home. However, when police arrived at the scene, they were met by protesters who said that they were trying to prevent a wrongful eviction, claiming that King had obtained a bankruptcy stay that would temporarily stop the repossession of his home. While it's unclear if this was true, it seems that officers went ahead with their initial orders and continued to try and serve the eviction papers. It was during this time that things took a bizarre, and they argue, dangerous turn. As police tried to head towards the front door of the property, all of a sudden a woman, later identified as 55-year-old Rory Woods, pulled up in an SUV that was towing a flatbed trailer. On the trailer were numerous hives housing thousands of honeybees. After getting out of her vehicle, Woods reportedly proceeded to remove the lid from one of the hives, releasing hundreds of bees. A deputy jumped onto the trailer and tried to stop Woods, but was stung multiple times in the face and head and was forced to retreat. When he did, Woods managed to push over an entire tower of hives, releasing hundreds more, now extremely agitated bees. At this point, even more officers were stung, causing several to run for cover. Woods was finally arrested after a struggle, though not before she allegedly donned a beekeeper's suit to protect herself and tried to move her hives closer to the front door of the repossessed property. According to representatives from the sheriff's office, at least 3 of their officers who were stung were allergic to bees, with one needing to be hospitalized due to their injuries. When Woods was informed about this following her arrest, she allegedly replied, quote, "Oh, you're allergic? Good." Woods has now been charged with assault and battery with a dangerous weapon and disorderly conduct. While the hospitalized officer was ultimately okay, in a later interview, Hampton County Sheriff Nicholas Cochee criticized Woods' actions, saying, quote, "Luckily he was all right, or she could be facing manslaughter charges. I support people's right to protest peacefully, but when you cross the line and put my staff and the public in danger, I promise you will be arrested." Representatives from the United States Attorney's Office for the Western District of Missouri say that a 30-year-old man is looking at a hefty prison sentence after he pleaded guilty to carrying out a bizarre and ill-considered bank heist this past summer. According to reports, the incident began sometime on July 20th when 30-year-old Michael C. Lloyd walked into the West Kearny Street branch of Bank of America in the city of Springfield. After walking up to one of the tellers, he handed her a note that read, quote, "Give your money now. Don't say anything. I have a partner outside." The teller did as Lloyd asked, handing over $754 from her cash drawer. Once he had the money, Lloyd fled the scene in a black pickup truck. A few minutes later, police who were responding to the incident got a call from a man who identified himself as the boyfriend of Lloyd's roommate. The man explained that Lloyd had stolen the female roommate's pickup truck that was used in the heist and said that the 30-year-old could be found at his residence at the Lazy Acres Mobile Home Park. A short time later, he was tracked down and arrested. While the tip-off that police received from the roommate's boyfriend was certainly helpful, it turned out that it wouldn't have been necessary. You see, Lloyd hadn't exactly set himself up for success in the first place. For starters, at the time of the robbery, he was wearing an ankle monitor for a previous offense, allowing authorities to easily place him at the scene. On top of that, it turned out that the threatening note Lloyd had passed to the bank teller had been written on the back of his own birth certificate. Finally, almost immediately after fleeing the bank, Lloyd apparently got cold feet about the robbery when he saw police arriving at the scene. His solution was to throw the money he had just taken out the window along with his ID and the birth certificate he had written the note on. He then texted his female roommate and claimed that her pickup truck had been stolen and that she should listen to a police scanner for details. Following his arrest, Lloyd offered a truly bizarre explanation for his actions. He reportedly stated that he had gotten into a fight with his lover earlier that day and that he had robbed the bank to, quote, prove a point. Unfortunately, he never told police what that point was. This week, Lloyd pleaded guilty to 1 count of bank robbery in federal court. He is now facing a sentence of up to 20 years in prison and a fine of up to $250,000. Representatives from Georgia's Atlanta Police Department say that a 27-year-old Ohio woman is facing several charges this week after she sprayed multiple people with a fire extinguisher during an argument with employees at the airport. The incident began at around 9:30 p.m. on January 17th, when 27-year-old Jennifer Holder was approached by employees and security staff at the Hartsfield-Jackson International Airport. According to the employees, Holder had just eaten at the airport's Buffalo Wild Wings restaurant, but had left without paying for her food. When confronted, Holder claimed that someone else had paid, walking away as staff tried to ask her further questions. As Holder was followed by employees and security staff, she allegedly began to get more and more agitated, yelling and creating a scene. She then ripped a fire extinguisher off of one of the walls and kept walking, proceeding to discharge the device anytime an airport employee tried to approach her. It was at this point that the police were called. By the time officers arrived, however, things had reportedly escalated once again. Holder had tried to open a secured door in Concourse D, and when staff rushed to stop her, she blasted 3 flight attendants in the face with the fire extinguisher. Several officers were also sprayed by Holder as they moved to take her into custody. And even after the fire extinguisher was taken away from the 27-year-old, she reportedly continued to behave erratically, spitting and kicking at officers. She was eventually placed under arrest and taken to the Clayton County Jail. The 3 flight attendants who were sprayed in the face with the fire extinguisher were apparently treated for minor respiratory issues from the device at the scene, but are said to be fine. Holder, meanwhile, is now facing several charges, including obstructing law enforcement officers, 2 counts of simple assault, and 3 counts of simple battery. Authorities in Blue Earth County, Minnesota say that a local 36-year-old woman is facing charges this week after she allegedly attacked her boyfriend with quite the unusual weapon during a heated domestic dispute. According to reports, the situation began at around 7:30 p.m. on February 1st, when police were called to a residence in the city of Eagle Lake with reports of a domestic incident. They arrived to find 2 people, 36-year-old Natalie Brummer and her boyfriend, whose name has not been released. The boyfriend, who had placed the 911 call, said that he had been attacked by Brummer. He said that it had started when they were on their way home from a local bar together, and she reportedly began hitting him and spitting in his face while he was trying to drive. Things only escalated when they actually got home, culminating when Brummer allegedly grabbed a whole chicken and struck him multiple times in the back of the head with it. Police were inclined to believe the boyfriend for 2 pretty good reasons. Not only had Brummer already been arrested in December of 2021 for assaulting him, but when officers arrived at the scene this week, he apparently still had chicken residue from the alleged attack in his hair. In case you were wondering, no, reports do not mention whether the whole chicken in question was raw or cooked. When officers went to place Brummer under arrest, she was reportedly uncooperative. According to police, the 36-year-old continuously yelled, tried to move her hands away to avoid being handcuffed, and kicked her legs around. She was eventually taken to the Blue Earth County Jail, where she was charged with domestic assault and obstructing police. In other chicken-related news, authorities in Cook County, Illinois say that a 66-year-old school worker is facing charges this week after she was accused of embezzling more than $1 million from her district in the form of chicken wings. According to reports, the scheme was run by 66-year-old Vera Liddell, a food service director who worked for Harvey School District 152 for more than a decade. From July of 2020 to February of 2022, she is alleged to have ordered more than 11,000 cases of chicken wings, which were charged to the district and ordered from their food provider, but which were never provided to the students. Authorities say that the scheme began at the height of the pandemic, when students were not physically allowed in schools, but the district was continuing to provide meals that their families could pick up. It's unclear exactly what Liddell did with all those chicken wings, but it's alleged that they never even made it into school buildings. Instead, the 66-year-old reportedly ordered them separately from the district's other food items and picked them up herself in a district-owned cargo van. The whole scheme unraveled sometime early last year when a business manager for the school district did a routine mid-year audit and realized that they were $300,000 over their annual food budget despite only being halfway into the year. When the business manager contacted the district's food provider, apparently everyone was familiar with Liddell because of the massive amount of chicken wings she was ordering. The fraud is estimated to have been worth around $1.5 million. The whole thing is even more disheartening because Harvey School District 152 is by no means a wealthy district to begin with. According to reports, more than 80% of the district's 1,600 children come from low-income families. Liddell is now facing charges including felony continuing financial crimes enterprise and theft exceeding $1 million. Representatives from the FBI say that a 21-year-old Tennessee Air National Guardsman is looking at a decade in prison this week after he recently applied to be a hitman on a parody website, then allegedly agreed to carry out a murder after meeting with a federal agent. The whole thing reportedly started back in February when 21-year-old Josiah Ernesto Garcia came across rentahitman.com. If you're a regular viewer, you'll know that we've discussed this website in the past. But for everyone else, Rent a Hitman was originally created by a group of friends back in 2005 who were trying to create a startup cybersecurity company. When the business didn't pan out, the website's administrator changed it into an elaborate parody page, complete with false testimonials from people who claim to be using hitman services, as well as phony intake forms where prospective hitmen could apply for work. Though it was created as a joke, as the administrator soon found out, there were more than a few people who took it seriously, including Garcia. According to reports, after finding the website, Garcia filled out one of these fake applications boasting of his military skills. He said that he had been in the Air National Guard since July of 2021 and that he had been issued an award for his marksmanship. He allegedly continued to follow up after sending the application, saying in another message, quote, "What can I say? I enjoy doing what I do, so if I can find a job that is similar to it, such as this one, put me in, coach." The website's administrator passed Garcia's information along to the FBI, who arranged to meet with him. During that meeting, the 21-year-old reportedly agreed to murder a person for $5,000. He was given a packet filled with photos and information about the fictional victim, and allegedly agreed to carry out the crime for a $2,500 down payment. He also asked if he needed to take pictures of the body for proof that the job was complete. He was arrested shortly after. Garcia is now facing a charge of use of interstate facilities in the commission of murder for hire, and is reportedly looking at up to 10 years if convicted. Authorities in Franklin County, Kansas say that they've now officially seen it all this week after they arrested a man for suspicion of DUI who was dressed like a can of beer. According to reports, the incident began sometime on May 5th when Franklin County deputies pulled over the unidentified driver who was apparently traveling northbound on Interstate 35 just outside the city of Ottawa. When officers approached the man's vehicle, they were surprised by his choice of attire. He was reportedly wearing a costume designed to make him look like a can of Bud Light beer. After running some roadside tests, officers allegedly concluded that the man was intoxicated and arrested him on suspicion of driving under the influence. He was then taken to the local county jail. Understandably, people were quick with jokes when the sheriff's office released a post about the incident to their Facebook page. One person commented, quote, "Is it really under the influence if he is the influencer?" While another asked, "Is that considered an open container?" Only for a third person to chime in responding, "Only if his fly is down." At the time of this recording, the driver has reportedly posted bond and is no longer in custody. If you're a regular viewer of our Crimes of the Week series, then you'll know that we've covered our fair share of absurd DUI stories. However, this next one might just be the most ridiculous we've heard yet. Representatives from Colorado's Springfield Police Department say that a man is facing a number of charges this week after he was pulled over for a traffic violation and tried to get out of the situation by blaming his dog. According to reports, the whole thing went down at approximately 11:30 p.m. on May 13th when police spotted a male driver speeding near 7th and Main Street. He was reportedly traveling 53 miles per hour in a 30 zone. When the man was pulled over, however, officers quickly witnessed something unbelievable. They apparently watched in disbelief as the man switched places with his dog, who up until that point had been riding in the front passenger seat. He then got out through the passenger side door and allegedly proceeded to tell police that his dog had been the one driving. Apparently realizing that this ludicrous excuse was not going to work, the man then reportedly tried to take off on foot, though he only made it about 20 yards before being caught and arrested. Police said that to their complete lack of surprise, the unidentified suspect showed signs of being intoxicated. The man was booked into the Baca County Jail, where he was subsequently charged with driving under the influence of alcohol and/or drugs, driving while ability impaired, driving under suspension, speeding 20 to 24 over the speed limit, and resisting arrest. In a Facebook post released by the Springfield Police Department after the incident, police joked that, quote, "The dog does not face any charges and was let go with just a warning." Commenters were also quick to get in on the action, with one person saying, quote, "He was too drunk to use a GPS, so he got a guide dog," and another chiming in, quote, "I wish my dog could drive." The animal is reportedly now in the care of one of the suspect's acquaintances. In other nightmarish roommate-related crime news, authorities in Louisville, Kentucky say that a 64-year-old man has been arrested and is facing charges this week after he allegedly shot his roommate during an argument that began over freezer food. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the night of May 20th when the suspect, 64-year-old Clifton Williams, discovered that his roommate had eaten the last Hot Pocket out of their freezer. This apparently caused him to fly into a rage, which quickly escalated when Williams started throwing tiles at the victim. In a later interview with police, the roommate said that he first, quote, "attempted to fight back by trying to beat his ass." However, this apparently failed, causing the man instead to try and flee the residence. When he did, Williams allegedly retrieved a handgun. The victim reportedly yelled for him not to shoot, but was ignored, and ended up getting shot in the butt. That's when he ran off to get help. He was treated at a local hospital for non-life-threatening injuries. Williams was arrested several hours later and has now been charged with felony assault. He is currently being held at the Jefferson County Jail in lieu of $7,500 bond. Unfortunately, reports do not mention which flavor of Hot Pocket led to the attack. Authorities in Clay County, Missouri say that a 19-year-old man is facing serious charges this week after he allegedly swatted a car manufacturing plant, forcing a massive evacuation. According to reports, the incident began at around 5:20 p.m. on July 18th, when police received an alarming report from Ford's Kansas City assembly plant, located in the village of Claycomo. The facility had received a threatening phone call from a man who said that he had barricaded himself in a bathroom on the building's second floor and was armed with an AK-47 as well as an unknown quantity of C4 explosives. Understandably, the plant was forced to shut down immediately, and its roughly 2,200 employees were evacuated. A large police response was quickly organized, with dozens of officers soon arriving at the scene. They searched the facility for 6 hours before it was conclusively determined that the threatening call had been a hoax. Following an investigation, police arrested 19-year-old Zachariah A. Peterson in connection with the incident. Authorities now allege that the teenager swatted the manufacturing plant to try and get his friend the day off of work. For those unfamiliar with the term, swatting is the process of making a prank call to emergency services with the intention of drawing the largest armed police response possible to a given address. As we've mentioned in reports about similar incidents, the so-called prank is incredibly dangerous and has led to deaths in the past. At the time of this recording, police say they have no reason to believe that Peterson's friend was in on his plan, though the 19-year-old reportedly claimed he was forced to make the call. Peterson has been charged with making a terroristic threat, and if convicted, could be facing up to 7 years in prison and a fine of $10,000. Authorities in Erie County, Ohio say that a bumbling would-be burglar was left pretty embarrassed this week after his plan to rob a bank went sideways, leaving him not only empty-handed, but also comically trapped in front of police. According to reports, it all started at around 2 a.m. on July 26th, when officers from the Huron Police Department received a notification that an alarm had been triggered at the local Vacation Land Federal Credit Union. When they arrived, strange noises immediately caught their attention, which they realized were coming from an access door above the bank's drive-thru. Officers watched for a few seconds as the door opened, revealing a masked man who had obviously broken in. Without checking to see if anyone was there, the man dropped a bag he was carrying to the ground before starting to lower himself from the access door. It was at this point that police announced themselves. Evidently startled that he had been caught, the man fell from the access door right into a large wheeled recycling bin below the door. Realizing that he was now trapped and seemingly resigned to his fate, he could be heard on body camera footage saying, "Ah, f**k," before surrendering without any kind of struggle. Things got even more embarrassing for the suspect when, while being placed under arrest, the bin he was in gave out for a second time, causing him to fall towards the ground. After being taken into custody, the man was identified as 27-year-old Tristan Heidi. Heidi reportedly continued to cooperate with police, admitting that he had been trying to rob the bank and saying that he had done it because he was broke. Heidi also reportedly revealed that his robbery plans had been a bust even before police had arrived. At the time he was caught, he had actually been leaving the building empty-handed after failing to secure any cash. Funnily enough, the only thing that he had successfully stolen was the recycling bin that he had fallen into, which he had initially used to climb up to the access door. Heidi is now facing charges of breaking and entering, possession of criminal tools, and safecracking. Indiana state troopers apparently wanted to send the message that they aren't messing around when it comes to impaired driving, after they arrested and charged a local man this week who was behind the wheel of a children's toy. According to reports, it all started around 9 p.m. on August 23rd, when a state police trooper spotted the 51-year-old suspect, John McKee, driving a blue Power Wheels Jeep on North 2nd Street in Vincennes Township. Though McKee was apparently pulled over originally because he was driving the toy Jeep on the road with no lights or reflectors in the dark, things escalated when the trooper noticed some signs that the 51-year-old might be intoxicated. He was asked to perform a roadside sobriety test, which he allegedly failed. After being taken to a nearby hospital, it was reportedly determined that McKee was under the influence of both marijuana and methamphetamine, and he was placed under arrest. He is now facing a felony charge of operating a vehicle while intoxicated with a prior conviction. The Power Wheels Jeep, meanwhile, which reportedly has a maximum speed of 5 miles per hour, was picked up by a local towing company. Authorities in Macomb County, Michigan say that a Canadian man is in serious trouble this week after he illegally crossed the border in fairly bizarre fashion and then allegedly tried to steal a gun from a local pawn shop. According to reports, the whole thing started recently when Ontario resident 24-year-old Jeremy James Wallace had his guns confiscated due to an unspecified firearms offense. Unable to legally purchase additional weapons, though apparently determined to skirt the ban, it was at this point that he came up with a plan. In the early morning hours of September 6th, Wallace allegedly put on a wetsuit and flippers and swam across the St. Clair River from the village of Sombra, Ontario, into Michigan. Once there, he traveled roughly 12 miles to the Metro Pawn and Gun store in the village of New Haven, where he posed as a customer. After having employees at the pawn shop bring him out a .22 caliber handgun to look at, Wallace apparently inquired about a second firearm. When the employee who was speaking with him went to get the weapon, Wallace allegedly grabbed the first gun off the counter along with 2 empty magazines and fled. Unfortunately for Wallace, he didn't make it very far before police arrived at the scene. They reportedly witnessed him running around the back of the pawn shop and into a wooded area where he was tracked down and arrested. Upon being taken into custody, Wallace reportedly shared the details of his scheme. He told them about the wetsuit, the flippers, and the flotation device he'd used to cross the river, and was also allegedly in possession of a pistol crossbow, some ammunition, and a hammer. He said he'd brought the additional tools in case the pawn shop was closed when he got there and he needed to break in. Authorities say that Wallace is now facing multiple charges, including improper entry by an alien, being an alien in possession of a firearm and ammunition, and possession of a stolen firearm. Authorities in Lancaster County, Nebraska say that a Texas county commissioner is facing charges this week after he recently tried to liven up a wedding he was officiating and got a whole lot more than he bargained for. According to reports, the whole situation unfolded on the afternoon of September 30th when the suspect, 62-year-old Michael Gardner, was officiating a family wedding in Denton, Nebraska. Evidently deciding that the marriage of 2 loved ones wasn't exciting enough on its own, he decided to spice things up by trying to, quote, get everyone's attention with a bang. He allegedly did this by pulling out a Pietta 1860 snub-nosed revolver, which he planned to fire a blank round from in the air. Oh yeah, we should mention that the blank round was one he made himself by stuffing black powder into an empty casing and gluing it shut. If you haven't already guessed, this went very badly. For starters, when Gardner went to cock the gun, his fingers slipped off the hammer, meaning that he ended up firing it in front of him rather than into the air. His poorly designed blank round also malfunctioned, turning the wad of glue that was meant to cap the round into a makeshift bullet, one that promptly hit his 12-year-old grandson in the left shoulder. Yeah, there's always that one guy at the wedding, isn't there? Anyway, thankfully the boy was okay, but as you might imagine, police weren't super happy with Gardner. He was arrested and booked into Lancaster County Jail on a charge of felony child abuse. I can't imagine he'll be invited to officiate more family weddings anytime soon. Representatives from the West Virginia State Fire Marshal's office say that a 32-year-old man is officially facing charges after he allegedly burned his own house down earlier this month because he didn't want to clean up a mess left by his new dog. According to reports, the whole thing started sometime on October 6th when dispatchers in Randolph County received a 911 call from the suspect, 32-year-old Randy Nethkin. Nethkin stated that his house in the community of Maybe was on fire and that the blaze had originated in the attic. Upon extinguishing the flames, though, almost immediately things didn't add up. Despite what Nethkin had told emergency responders, the fire had not originated in the attic. In fact, it was clear that multiple fires had been started all over the residence, each of which were separate and were from different heat sources. In other words, this was arson. When Nethkin was confronted with this information at the end of the investigation roughly 2 weeks later, he apparently admitted to what had really happened. He allegedly told authorities that he burned his own house down because his new puppy had pooped all over the place, and he didn't feel like cleaning it up. As if this wasn't wild enough, police say that after the fire, Nethkin went online and created a GoFundMe campaign to try and raise money to rebuild his house. On the now defunct page, the 32-year-old wrote that he needed cash to help pay for the damage because he, quote, didn't really have a lot of money. Nethkin was arrested on October 18th and has now been charged with first-degree arson. It looks like he's going to have even less money now because according to the last available update, he was being held in the county jail on $20,000 we'd like to take a second
bond.
to give a huge shout out to everyone who has made it this far into the video. Seriously, thank you so much for watching. If you found today's upload interesting and informative, we'd be honored if you consider liking and subscribing, as well as hitting the notification bell and selecting all notifications to stay up to date with our latest releases. If you're looking for additional ways to help support the channel, we'd love to have you join us over on Patreon. Patrons get ad-free and early access to all of our content, as well as 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. You can learn more at patreon.com/crimezone, where you'll also find some of the fine folks whose names are currently on screen. All that being said, we understand that not everyone has the means to support financially, and that's totally okay. We appreciate every like, sub, share, and comment that you send our way. Once again, thanks so much everyone, and take care.